Zohran Mamdani, the leading candidate for mayor of New York City, just schooled a Fox News host, not on policy, but on principle. They didn't invite him to discuss housing or transit. They brought him in to test his loyalty to a foreign government. They pressed him to praise presidents, condemn Hamas on command, and abandon the word genocide. But instead of folding, Mamdani exposed their double standard, where Israeli leaders get impunity and Palestinians get interrogated for existing. This wasn't a debate. It was a moral trap, and he refused to betray his conscience for a headline. Let's get into it.
Thank you very much for being here. Candidate for mayor of New York City, you're up by 13 points. It looks like you've got the wind at your back. You've got a big debate coming up tomorrow night with the other candidates, Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa. Obviously, New York City policy is front and center, but I would imagine that some of the big headlines recently are going to come up tomorrow night as well. So I want to get to all the policy issues in New York, but I wanted to ask you this first. If you are asked tomorrow night, if you give credit to President Trump for the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas and the return of the 20 living hostages, would you raise your hand?
You know, first I want to say it's a real pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me. And it's an honor to have this opportunity to speak to so many New Yorkers and Americans across the country. And when it comes to the ceasefire, I am thankful and I have hope that it will actually endure and that it will be lasting. And I continue to have concerns because I've seen reports still, just this in the last few days, that 5 Palestinians were killed by the Israeli military. And that's what gives me pause about issuing any kind of praise or celebration at a moment when it is still so in its infancy. And what I will tell you is that in that same moment, it is also one that requires a focus on ensuring that that hope, that belief in a better future is one that is emblematic in our policies right here in New York City as well. And that's what we're hoping to lead with.
So would you give President Trump credit or not, to any extent? Credit or not?
I think it's too early to do so.
Too early to say.
But if it proves to be something that is lasting, something that is durable, then I think that that's where you give credit.
She isn't really asking about ceasefire. She's testing him. Will he credit Trump, soften his criticism, fall back in line? But he does none of it. He refuses to turn this horror into political points. That alone separates him from 99% of American politicians.
So you've denounced Israel and the United States for the response to the slaughter on October the 7th. In fact, at times you've called it a lasting stain, the response, and at times you have left October 7th out of your statements completely around this issue. Right now, you just talked about Israelis killing some Palestinians, but Hamas is killing Palestinians within Gaza. And they have not returned the bodies that they promised to return, including 2 Americans, Itai Chen and Omer Nutra, whose families we have interviewed over these months. So what is your response to what Hamas is doing now?
I think those are bodies and remains that should absolutely be returned. And I think that I have no issue with critiquing Hamas or the Israeli government because my critiques all come from a place of universal human rights. And my focus, however, is right here in New York City and transforming the most expensive city in America into one that's affordable for each and every New Yorker.
Here's the trap. If he condemns Hamas alone, they'll headline it. Progressive Democrat supports Israeli response. If he mentions Palestinian suffering, they accuse him of excusing terrorism. He answers with principle, not performance. Equal condemnation, equal humanity. And that is exactly what they cannot stand.
But, okay, I want to get to that, absolutely. But do you believe that Hamas should lay down their weapons and leave the leadership in Gaza?
I believe that any future here in New York City is one that we have to make sure that's affordable for all. And as it pertains to Israel and Palestine, that we have to ensure that there is peace. And that is the future that we have to fight for.
But you won't say that Hamas should lay down their arms and give up leadership in Gaza.
I don't really have opinions about the future of Hamas and Israel beyond the question of justice and safety and the fact that anything has to abide by international law. And that applies to Hamas, that applies to the Israeli military, applies to anyone you could ask me about.
This is the oldest trick in media framing. Reduce a 75-year occupation into a yes or no checkbox. They want him to choose a side in their manufactured binary, Israel or Hamas. But he refuses the false choice. He chooses human rights. That's not avoidance. That's moral clarity.
Okay. One last thought on that. You have said that you would arrest Netanyahu if he came to the United States. You've been very outspoken in your criticism of him. Do you stand by that? You would arrest him if he came here if you were mayor?
I've said that this is a city that believes in international law, and this is a city that wants to uplift and uphold those beliefs. The Prime Minister...
The United States doesn't stand by the International Criminal Court.
It hasn't signed the treaty for the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court, however, has issued a warrant for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu.
But what grounds in the United States could you arrest him on?
As it has for Vladimir Putin. I've said that I believe that we should uphold arrest warrants by the International Criminal Court, and that we should do so only in abiding with all of the laws in front of us. I'm not going to make a new law to ensure that we can actually do this.
Do you think that Commissioner Tisch would allow you to arrest Netanyahu in New York City?
I've appreciated Commissioner Tisch's leadership of the NYPD, and I think that she's done a good job at lowering crime across the city.
But do you think that she would go along with arresting Netanyahu in New York?
I can tell you that I'm going to exhaust every legal option in front of me, not to make new laws to do so.
Notice how accountability becomes extremism when it applies to powerful allies. They praised international law when it targeted Putin. Now they mock it when it targets Netanyahu. Zohran is consistent. War crimes are war crimes, and consistency in this political climate is revolutionary. They want him to swear loyalty to power. Instead, he swears loyalty to justice. This isn't about foreign policy. It's about whether America can tolerate a leader who refuses to rank human lives. And that is why voices like his are so rare and so necessary. This right here is why voices like Zohran Mamdani matter. While others dodge and perform, he speaks directly, naming corporate greed, defending working people, and refusing to bow to billionaire narratives. And that's exactly why he gets interrupted, misquoted, and framed as radical. If you believe voices like this deserve a platform, don't just watch, comment, share, support. Push these conversations into the algorithm. Because media will always amplify those in power, unless we amplify those who speak truth to it. This is more than politics. It's a battle over who gets to define justice in public. And today, Zohran made it clear, justice belongs to all of us.